Hello, everybody. I'm Slew, and welcome to another installment of The Dissection. I'm here with
Jamie. Mighty. Let's get it. Let's get it.
Let's dissect, JB. So today we are going to be looking at the return of Thabo Mbeki. Sounds like a movie.
Yeah. Yizo, the return, Papa.
And then we're going to be looking at load shedding.
Yeah.
/ bottomless electricity at this point. And then we're also going to be looking at Pravin Gordon and the SIU. Interesting things are unfolding there. But let's start off here. The return of Thabo Mbeki. Dramatic.
Yes. So the ANC has brought out the big gun. Mbeki was in Soweto campaigning and, he spoke to the media. There's a few clips that I want to play before we talk about it further. But he was out there, spoke to the media, and there's a clip from last year as well that I think is relevant. But let's see. Let's go to the first clip.
We'll see more on the campaign trail, but no, I have not put aside my concerns. The concerns that are expressed by the people, when the people say we're unhappy about this, about the other, about the ANC, those concerns are genuine. And we must attend to them. That's why I'm saying that part of when I say to people, vote ANC, I'm also making a commitment to the people that will attend to these problems within the ANC itself. Because it must really discharge its responsibilities.
Okay, thank you.
Another media.
Have you changed your mind about campaigning for the ANC?
I've never changed my mind.
So that was the first question around some of the concerns that he had raised. So we'll go to those concerns. But before we go to the concerns, here's the other clip where he was asked about Jacob Zuma and whether or not the party is afraid of Jacob Zuma, whether they'll expel Jacob Zuma for, obviously, Umkhonto weSizwe. So here's what he said.
You see, the position has been taken by the leadership, and I think they're probably right about this, is that there are certain set procedures in the constitution of the ANC as to how you expel a member. That it is necessary for the ANC itself to respect that constitution so that it does not behave in any manner, in a lawless manner, in terms of its own laws. And therefore, the decisions to take him to disciplinary committee and so on, that's what's prescribed in the Constitution. It's not cowardice. It's that I think that loyalty to its own Constitution is important in the same way that we must also be loyal to the national Constitution. So I think the position that the ANC leadership has taken on this in terms of procedure is correct.
Jonathan is
Defending the indefensible? No?
So if we start with the Jacob Zuma comments, right? I think obviously the ANC has got a process to remove somebody, but I don't think that the ANC wants to remove Jacob Zuma. And I think we are seeing that. Jacob Zuma has done a lot. He has gone very far in terms of aggravating the interests of the ANC right now. And we all know that the rules are clear.
Yeah.
The constitution of the ANC is clear. I think it's rule 25 or something like that. I can't remember which one it is, top of my head. But I think they are concerned about expelling him from the party before this election for, one, the fact that could bolster Umkhonto weSizwe, right? People could support Zuma more because they will feel that he's been kicked out unfairly, or they may feel that he's been hard done by the party and join Umkhonto weSizwe and vote for Umkhonto weSizwe. So that's a fear, right? The other fear is that it could be demoralizing. Some people may like Jacob Zuma, right? But still support the ANC. But if you kick him out and they feel like I'm no longer excited about this election, they are not going to turn out on election day. They just won't go because they're demoralized. It's like if you're watching your team lose all the time, you're not necessarily going to watch that team anymore play on TV and stuff. It's like, for example, I love LeBron James, my favorite basketball player. But for the last 2 years, they've been facing this one team, the Denver Nuggets. And this team keeps breaking their hearts. Like they will be leading at the beginning and then they get beat in the last 5 minutes.
Is it like the Kaizer Chiefs?
Well, I mean, Chiefs people have their own issues. I don't know what the hell is going on with Chiefs. But this is what happens to me in basketball. So this year, I basically said, I'm not going to follow the season. I'm going to wait and see where we land up. And then we landed up in a situation where we were 8th on the log we were 7th on the log and Denver was number 2. So the way it works, playoffs is number 1 faces number 8, number 2 faces number 7. Face them again. And right now, the Lakers are 3-0 down. It's best of 7. There's one more game to go. But I didn't watch. I didn't wake up at 4 to watch the same thing that I've seen so many times happen where we've lost. We've lost 11 straight games to this team. 11. Why would I wake up and watch number 12?
Yeah.
So imagine a situation where you are now thinking that, something has happened that is so bad in the entity that you love. Would you still show up and vote for them?
No.
It's not like, and that's a risk that they don't want to take because the polls are showing that they're in trouble. So if the voter turnout dips on their side, everyone else will still have their turnout because they are enthused to remove the ANC. So you as the ANC, you don't want to do something at a critical time that will demoralize the base or give impetus to another political party. And removing Zuma at this time, I think would achieve that.
What's your take on, the ANC in Gauteng having the former President Thabo Mbeki join their campaign? Is it a shocker? Were we expecting it, considering that he has been very vocal about his concerns as far as...
I wanted to go to these concerns.
Yeah.
So I was surprised that Thabo Mbeki campaigned at all because what he said last year was very strong. It was very strong. And I didn't think, this guy is coming. But he came to campaign for that. So that's number 1. I was surprised. Number 2 is, does he have a pull? I think that there are some people who still respect and admire Thabo Mbeki. And for those people, the fact that he's staying with the ANC and is campaigning for the ANC will have symbolic value. As to how many of those people they are, I'm not sure if it's a critical mass because Mbeki has never been popular in the way that Zuma was popular. Zuma was a man of the streets and Mbeki was always viewed as aloof and distant. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So he has definitely been trying to be more involved, go to events, do these leadership seminars. And I think he's still well respected within the ranks of the ANC. So it's not 0. I just don't know if it's enough to get to 57. Because that's what they're aiming for.
Yeah.
57. And I don't know if this is going to take them from 38 to 57. I don't think that the biggest stimulus package is that big. Is it 1% big? Maybe. Maybe he gets them from 39 to 40.
Not even dance challenges can try and get them to 57 at this point.
Hey, they're in trouble. Don't talk to me about the dance challenge. That's another story altogether. The come Tuesday. We'll talk about it another day. But I think it was a fail. But the issue of the concerns he raised, something that I want to address, because I think the concerns he raised are quite significant. And there's this issue now of the hypocrisy of saying that, in the one instance what he said, and then now saying that those concerns must be addressed, but they will be addressed within the party. But let's go back to what he said. And then maybe you can even tell me, have you seen the script before? This is what he said.
I don't think the ANC understands that reality. It is true that you have got many greedy people, many corrupt people. If I ask the question, why is the ANC, which marginalized people as we were saying, why is it behaving like this? I say to the ANC comrades that when you say I must go campaigning next year, to say to people, vote ANC. How am I going to do that? To say, vote ANC. When I know very well that the branch of the ANC in this constituency is led by a criminal. You can't. It's not possible to go and say vote ANC for a criminal.
You see? So that's what he said. And he went on for a bit last
I
time.
remember that made headlines.
It did. And he even spoke about he said some stuff about what's this thing called? About Pala Pala in that same talk. He said some stuff about Pala Pala as well. So for him to then come back and say in the way that he is now that no, it's fine. The ANC will address those issues and it must address those issues. Let me find that clip for you.
It's not our colleague raised about grey listing. He referred to Pala Pala. And that is correct, the reference. Because the story was that there's a Sudanese businessman who lives in Dubai, who came to South Africa carrying loads and lots of cash in dollars, came through Oliver Tambo Airport, declared the money, bought buffaloes. The Commissioner of Taxes, Mr. Kisbetter, have said there is no record of such monies being declared at OR Tambo Airport. So that record doesn't exist. It's not been found. But there's no assumption to a thing that it exists, but has not been found. So it hasn't been found. And therefore, the suspicion arises naturally. Is this not part of
Did he
money?
lie?
Do you see?
Did he lie?
So, I mean, before we even comment on the substance and what we think about it, this is not small things that he said. These are not small things that he said. He spoke about Pala Pala. He spoke about crooks, in leading branches of the ANC. He spoke about failure to deliver to the people. So this is the contradiction that exists.
That's true. Because it just got me thinking, then who's leading the branch where he was campaigning?
And that was at somewhere in Pretoria, Unisa. So that question still remains, right? So if you're saying that there's crooks, if you're saying that there hasn't been delivery, if you're saying that there are questions about money laundering as it relates to Palapat, that's not small stuff.
Doesn't him saying the concerns still stand count for anything like he did in the other clip we played?
I think it tries to thread the needle because he remembers what he says. Thabo Mbeki hasn't forgotten. But you know what Marques Brownlee says, and he's like a tech reviewer. He says, you never buy a product based on promises of future updates. Because those promises may never be realized by a company. Company may go a different direction. They may delay that thing till you don't even have the product. You buy the product based on what it can do now, not on the promise of future updates. So the idea that they are going to change in the future is one that is not verifiable by anybody. It's hopeful. It's aspirational. It's ambitious. And what if they don't and you've already given support when you were already told last time by the same person that you have legitimate reasons to be concerned about them and that he won't be able to endorse them because of those same concerns?
I wonder what convinced him to campaign this time.
What I would love is if we had a media that would ask these questions. Say, okay, Sharp, we've seen you campaign. Come to studio in Tambama or the next morning. Can you imagine morning live?
Yeah.
Sakina asking the question. Say, hey, bro, last year at UNISA, you said this. What has caused your change of heart in particular? Don't you think there's a contradiction? What is the source of your change of heart? And to actually push. On Sky News, you often see those interviews. Ministers will go and sit down, 12 minutes, 20 minutes, being asked by Sophie Rich, why? And then they have to answer.
But Jamie, as you're saying that, I'm remembering a tweet that I saw right after this where somebody compared this to a marathon, saying that the ANC is making their campaign better as we're moving closer to the actual date. Could this be that?
Well, look, I think the ANC is getting into full gear. That's correct. Because it seems to have taken them time to get their act together. I think that leaked NEC voice recording that has been reported about was a sign of urgency from the president's office, and it's now leading to this all hands on deck effort because the polls are what they are. But at the same time, I don't know if it's going to make a material difference. I think that the challenges that the ANC is facing with the electorate are long-standing and will not be resolved by a last-minute sprint. That's what I think. But also, I saw someone, or I saw that tweet as well, and from a runner's perspective, it was actually a little bit incorrect. Elite runners don't actually pick up the pace as they go. They run at a consistent pace.
From beginning to the end.
And in fact, they may slow down in the second half. So if you look at Eliud Kipchoge, who's the best runner alive right now, he's the guy who ran a marathon in just under 2 hours, even though it wasn't an official record. You can actually go and check his pace chart. And what you find is that his pace is consistent. I think it's about 2:53 or something like that. 2 minutes, 53 seconds per kilometer, right? But he's literally maintaining that pace throughout. But that's a side conversation. Social runners sometimes do that, where you start a little bit slow and then you go faster in the second half, but not marathon runners who are elite. That was it's a side discussion from my running enthusiasm days. But yeah, let's continue.
But I mean, Jamie, are you saying that even the bottomless electricity is not, is it not full gear? It's not giving you full gear?
So I mean, the electricity has been around for a bit now, right? I think what day are we on now? Day 30 or something of no load shedding. Yeah. So I think the electricity thing is very intelligent from the ANC.
How so?
It takes away one of the biggest, most physical complaints that people can feel. The thing about, mismanagement, maladministration, poor leadership, is that oftentimes you don't feel the problems immediately. You feel the problems when you have to go to the police station. And then you're like, hang on, this is very disorganized. What's going on? Why am I waiting so long? Why am I dealing with this level of unprofessionalism? So, but that doesn't happen every day. Everyone is not in a police station
every day. True.
Dealing with that.
True.
Everyone is not in a hospital every day. The doctors and the nurses, they know the state of the hospitals, especially if they're working in some of the far-off hospitals which are underserviced, under-resourced. They know that the bathrooms don't work. They know that there are issues with security. They know everything that is wrong in the hospital, but you don't know. You don't know what's happening at all of the hospitals because you're not there. You're not a healthcare practitioner. And the day that your relative has to go there, it's a wake-up call. Because you may see long queues getting your relative on the system to get the paperwork.
Your questions not being answered.
Yes, that could really be frustrating for you. And if you were encountering the state physically every day and seeing some manifestation of incompetence, it would irritate you to the point where your vote would be clear, right? And for many people, there are versions of that, right? So potholes are a version of that encounter of the state. But let's be honest, you're not going to a police station, you're not going to Home Affairs, you're not going to hospital every day, right? But the place where you were feeling the failure of the state every 4 hours was with load shedding. You have to charge power banks. You have to get gas. You have to cook during the day because you know there's not going to be power. You have to check Eskom Sepush every day when you wake up, every night when you go to
sleep. Sometimes it's extended and it's not communicated. Exactly. So you're like, I'll cook in the afternoon. Ganti, no.
Exactly. You come home, you're tired. There's no power. You know, these are the things that were frustrating everyone, and it's very real and it's in your face, and it was getting very bad. So the fact that they've managed to keep the power on has taken away some of the agitation.
But Jamie, does this mean really, as many people have said, that we don't have an electricity problem?
I think there's still an electricity problem. This type of thing happens in African countries all the time. Last year, when ZANU-PF was running for elections in Zimbabwe, because there was a big election in Zimbabwe last year, there was electricity, there was water, challenges that the country consistently has. After the election, those problems came back with a vengeance. And on top of that, there were additional problems. As things stand right now, Zimbabwe is trying to roll out a new currency.
Yes.
The currency is a flop. There are issues of famine. There's no food in certain places. The president had to announce that they're going to need support to feed, I think, about 2 million people who are not going to have food. But last year, they were announcing that they're going to be bumper harvests. Everything is sorted. That the rhetoric that there's not going to be food is just rhetoric of haters and people who are sponsored by the West, etc., etc. So the reality is, Eskom applied for new classifications of load shedding with NERSA, and they go all the way up to, I think, level 16. And those have been approved. Why would you get them approved? What's coming in winter? What's coming? I don't think that we're going to have a load shedding free winter. I think that we're going to have a load shedding free election.
And it's what I said recently, that a split second in the dark is going to be very dangerous. You have to keep the lights on. You have to let the people count the votes. Listen.
No. There'll be electricity during counting. Don't worry about that. There'll be power. It's after after the election. There's a plan.
Can you imagine after counting is done?
Really, after counting is after the ceremony at the IEC.
Yeah.
That's when I think there will be problems. So if that ceremony is on the 3rd of May, June, on the 3rd of June, that's when the problem will start. As soon as they announce, and then they say Parliament will meet so that they can vote for, I expect anything.
Lights off.
Because you voted. Now they don't care about you've given them your money. You've bought the product now. Now you're going to see the real.
But does it mean that then the electorate has to be very skeptical about everything, even the most basic of services?
Anything that happens in an election season, you must be very skeptical of. Whether it's an arrest, whether it's a protest, whether it's an event in a community, whether it's collection of people's funds, whether it's anything public facing. If something all of a sudden starts trending on Twitter, and then people are fighting about this person or that person, you never know whether or not that is sponsored political activity for the interests of a particular political party. You have to be super skeptical during an election season to protect yourself from being manipulated by political parties and their online operatives or any of their machinations. A lot of the things happening now, a lot of the promises being made now by politicians, by political parties, are purely for the purposes of getting votes. And some of it is underhanded. So you have to be hyper vigilant. Hyper vigilant. You know, you go on Twitter, there are sometimes accounts that were created in 2023. These accounts have got numbers in them, or they've just got a face of a cartoon, or like a face of a freedom fighter, or something like that. And all of a sudden they're active. Be very careful. Cut accounts with a wrong, not a wrong, but a skewed follow to follower ratio, where they are following more people than are following them. And then when you check who's following them, you see that all of those things don't seem to be real accounts that are verifiable. Name, surname, you can't Google that person. These are the types of accounts that have, and they're also on TikTok. Even on TikTok, there's a lot of political activity to try to manipulate public sentiment a particular direction. Politicians do this, political parties do this. People have to be hyper vigilant. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself taken for a ride, misled, hoodwinked, bamboozled by the machinations. And they'll even make promises. They'll say, hey, this thing will be available. Trust on the 1st of June. You will be able. Guys, politicians lie, and they lie the most during elections.
Sure.